Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are putting on our finest suit, grabbing a carry-on that definitely meets the size regulations, and heading into a place Ryan Bingham calls Air World.
hmm
Our subject is a man whose entire existence is defined by emotion, loyalty to an institution over an individual, and the relentless, almost spiritual pursuit of a single quantified number.
1 million frequent flyer miles.
Exactly.
And this is such an intense exploration into the paradoxical life of the modern professional
It
transient.
really is.
Ryan Bingham is a highly successful management consultant.
Right.
He specializes in career transition counseling, which is a field just dripping with cynicism as he coaches people through the raw trauma of being fired.
Right.
And at the same time, he's trying to achieve his own personal salvation through airline points. We have a fascinating stack of sources here analyzing how his professional cynicism just clashes violently with this deeply personal, quantified quest for what he calls a crucial horizon.
And that horizon is approaching fast, which gives this entire journey a real ticking clock
A
urgency.
huge one.
His corporate account is about to be canceled, threatening to cut off his mileage supply just shy of the finish line. So let's unpack this journey, starting with the very unique philosophy he has built around his life in transit, the concept he has dubbed Air World.
Right. So Bingham doesn't just tolerate travel. I mean, he completely transforms it. He views himself and his peers not just as frequent flyers, but as
A new species.
a sort of mutation, a new species.
Yeah.
For him, flying isn't an inconvenience. It's literally where he feels most at home. He's psychologically inverted the experience most of us, dread.
He has zero roots. I mean, he maintains an apartment only for storage purposes, and he admits he actually lives in the margins of his itineraries.
Wow.
The places most people find sterile and anxiety-inducing, the security lines, the stale air, the pressurized cabin, he finds them dear, familiar, even sweet.
He's achieved stability through constant motion, which is a remarkable psychological feat in itself.
It is. The moment he steps into an airport, he enters his comfort zone.
And this comfort zone is so pervasive, he defines it as an entire political, cultural, and economic entity. Air world.
A nation within a nation.
Exactly. That's what he calls it. Complete with its own specific architecture, its own language, its own unique mood, and, most importantly, its own untaxed currency. He's carved out a sovereign identity for himself above the clouds.
And if you want to understand the culture of Air World, I mean, you just need to look at what they read. His hometown papers, naturally, are the nationally ubiquitous USA Today and Wall Street Journal.
Of course.
They are available in every major city, they're predictable, and they offer exactly the kind of sanitized, professional view of the world that reinforces Air World's manufactured neutrality.
And their literature choice is just as revealing. He notes that the standard literature of this transient community is the bestseller or near bestseller, focusing heavily on things like espionage, high finance, and this classic contradiction, stories about the goodness of common people in small towns.
Right, so what does that tell you?
Well, this selection suggests a deep, ongoing need for both escapism, the high-stakes thrill of espionage, and this comforting moral simplicity that completely contrasts with the transactional nature of their real lives.
They're seeking an ethical clarity in fiction that they absolutely cannot find in their consulting jobs.
That's it. And the architecture is crucial to his sense of stability. He is a connoisseur of transient luxury. He loves the sweet hotels near runways, specifically favoring rooms equipped with kitchenettes and conference tables.
And those details are important. The kitchenette provides the illusion of domesticity, right? While the conference table anchors him professionally, reminding him he's always working, always moving toward a goal.
And there is one profoundly sad yet telling anecdote that just captures his isolated domesticity perfectly.
Okay.
He once cooked a full Christmas feast. We're talking glazed ham, sweet potato pie, in one of those hotel kitchenettes.
But who did he serve it to?
Not family, not friends. He served it to the janitors and maids, one or two at a time on their breaks, because they didn't speak English. It was this massive domestic gesture, executed perfectly, but utterly devoid of genuine communication or human connection.
It was ritual without relationship.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's the definition of air world intimacy. Perfectly courteous, impeccably executed, but completely non-committal.
And speaking of predictable luxury and avoidance of the masses, he absolutely adores the Compass Club lounges.
Oh, yeah.
He highlights the flagship Denver Club specifically for its hyper-modern features, the digital juice dispenser, and the deep suede sofas.
Right. These clubs are the literal borders of air world, providing a highly controlled, quiet buffer zone away from the chaos of the main terminals.
But the true quantifiable substance of Airworld, the very bedrock of Bingham's philosophy, that lies in its currency.
The airline bonus miles.
The miles. He values these miles more than dollars, treating them with almost religious respect.
And his reasoning is surprisingly compelling, you have to admit.
It is. He calls miles private property in its purest form because, unlike cash or stocks, they are not degraded by inflation and they're not taxed.
So in an economy he sees as constantly fluctuating and manipulated, the mile offers a stable, untouchable unit of value.
But here's the massive paradox in that thinking, and it's something we should probably challenge.
Okay.
If miles are private property in its purest form, aren't they also the ultimate symbol of corporate dependence?
That's a great point. He is trading financial freedom, the power of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
for institutional loyalty. His entire net worth is tethered to the health and policies of a single entity, Great West Airlines.
Which is a massive contradiction to his deeply cynical profession.
Absolutely. And this dependency manifests in his lifestyle, which is governed by what he calls the total mileage system, or TMS.
Right, the TMS. He doesn't shop for value or quality. He shops for accumulation. He funnels his entire consumer existence through this one system.
I mean, think about the breadth of his commitment. He shops for hotels, rental cars. He uses Maestro because they pay better miles, even though he suspects they keep the vehicles too long.
Long-distance carriers, mail-order steak firms, even his broker.
All of it. All decisions are based solely on the number of miles they yield. It is a complete conversion of his financial identity into an accumulation machine.
And he's not doing this to fund a tropical vacation. While he does consider donating a chunk to charity to one of those groups that flies sick kids to hospitals, the primary, consuming and overwhelming goal is personal salvation.
Reaching that crucial horizon of 1 million frequent flyer miles.
Yes.
And he emphasizes that word, boundary. He says he needs boundaries in his life.
Which makes sense. For a professional transient who is constantly crossing time zones and living without physical roots, a quantified status level like this provides a sense of permanent, unassailable achievement that his job can never offer.
He's creating his own permanence in a world of constant flux.
And the pressure is intense. He is rushing to achieve this before his boss, Greg Gregory, returns from Belize and cancels his corporate travel account, cutting off his main supply line.
He has to reach this elite status now, while he still has the corporate backing to fly all these high-mileage routes.
And this isn't just about a free upgrade, right?
No, not at all. At Great West Airlines, since the merger and renaming, they only have exactly 9 mileage millionaires. He is aiming to be the 10th.
A very exclusive club.
Very. Achieving it grants him untouchable permanent residency in Airworld. It elevates him from a professional traveler to a recognized, honored institution within the airline system.
So while Airworld is defined by this kind of isolation and professional distance, Bingham does admit that the shared experience of constant motion creates a sort of cozy solidarity among the frequent flyers.
Yeah, but it's important to distinguish this from true connection.
Right.
This network is based on highly functional, fleeting exchanges and unspoken contracts, not real friendship or vulnerability. Acquaintances are made through the minimal necessary interaction. That's my seat, or maybe done with that business week.
They're just negotiating shared space.
Exactly.
He recounts a specific moment of almost formal Airworld etiquette that really illustrates the limits of this solidarity. He saw 1989's Miss USA twice in the same row on completely different routes months apart. She's famously tiny, barely over 5 feet.
Yep.
He simply helped her lift her carry-on into the overhead bin, respecting the unspoken contract that prohibits any deeper conversation or engagement.
And that unspoken contract is the social contract of Airworld peace. You share the space, you assist with basic courtesies like luggage, but you respect the extreme privacy and transactional nature that comes from being constantly in motion.
The most important interaction is the exchange of professional, actionable intelligence.
What he terms local knowledge exchange.
Right. It's mutual support within the transient economy focused entirely on efficiency. He's swapping practical tips, recommending a specific hotel in Tulsa that's quiet, or tipping off a fellow passenger to the best rib joint in Fort Worth near the highway exit.
The bond is solidified by shared minor crises, like turbulence. Nothing like lateral shaking to cement a bond, he notes wryly. It's an easy, low-stakes sense of belonging.
But the solidarity, no matter how cozy, is conditional and it's deeply fragile. The entire structure depends on the assumption of shared professional probity and integrity. And as we're about to see, Bingham's faith in the code of Airworld is about to be violently and personally shattered, undermining the very foundation of his transient security.
So let's pivot from the quantified comfort of Airworld to the grinding emotional labor that actually pays for it.
Okay.
Ryan Bingham's job, ironically, is entirely about disruption and emotional loss. He majors overwhelmingly, unfortunately, in career transition counseling, or CTC.
It is the complete antithesis of his own life philosophy.
Totally. He travels to stabilize himself, but his job is stabilizing others after their personal stability, their job, their identity, their income has been destroyed.
And he defines CTC in the most saccharine and thus most cynical terms.
Yeah.
A fancy term for coaching people to understand job loss as an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth.
Ugh. He is painfully aware of the profound conflict inherent in the job. He admits his travels, instead of feeling like a grand adventure, often feel like a trangy ballad about disillusionment.
And the constant need to deliver these motivational platitudes while knowing the fundamental lie of the situation. It takes a significant toll.
The cost is personal. We know he took a massive 7-week vacation, a record for him, for health reasons.
Right.
After years of pep-talking the jobless, he was struggling with a persistent low mood and a debilitating mental fuzziness. Later, this exhaustion manifested as segmented collapse, marked by irresistible sleepiness during key meetings, which necessitated a paid leave of absence.
The emotional cost of selling hope he doesn't believe in is physically overwhelming him.
Yeah, and the job's core conflict is brilliantly encapsulated in his own description of the CTC parable. They aren't firing people, and they aren't finding them jobs, so what are they doing?
He provides the ultimate devastating definition of his task.
Our role is to make limbo tolerable, to ferry wounded souls across the river of dread and humiliation and self-doubt to the shore of hope.
But they don't deliver them to shore.
No. They stop the boat at the last minute and make them swim while the consultants row quickly back to the corporate palace of banishment to present the bills.
And they just offer distant shouts of encouragement from the boat. Keep it up.
I mean, that metaphor, it deserves a moment of reflection. It reveals the consultant's moral position is strictly financial.
Absolutely. They are paid by the corporation to manage the emotional fallout, not to save the person. They profit by making the terrifying, uncertain limbo feel productive and actionable.
It's psychological management designed to neutralize corporate liability.
And the training itself is deeply regimented, a kind of professional therapy designed to keep the terminated executive busy and compliant.
Right. Clients are taught that finding a job is a job itself, and critically, not working is work too.
They urge infinite patience, noting that a job search for high-income earners can stretch into years, far outlasting any severance benefits.
It's a mechanism to sustain the illusion of progress while protecting the corporation from liability or lingering bad feelings.
The emotional toll is clear, but the true institutional cynicism of the field is laid bare in his critical assessments. It took him time, but he eventually realized the profound truth. His client was always management, not the employee who was now sitting across from him weeping over a latte.
And one specific explosive incident crystallized this cynicism for him.
Yeah.
The Vigorate scandal assignment.
Great.
Bingham was tasked with neutralizing the potential threat from 3 senior executives who were furious about being abruptly let go by the energy drink company, Vigorate.
High-stakes, emotional time bombs.
Exactly. So to manage the risk, he administered personality tests, a standard psychological tool, but the results were shocking.
Okay.
The test suggested all 3 executives suffered from deep personality disorders, defects that would predict the absolute poorest career performance. Bingham's internal labels for them were crude but direct, freaks and deficients.
So what does he do with that?
He was so disturbed by this finding that he consulted his own firm, Integrated Strategic Management, or ISM. He needed guidance on what to do with results, suggesting these individuals might need professional psychological help.
And ISM's reaction is the defining moment of the assignment.
It is. They didn't dispute his findings, they vouched for his conclusions, but ordered him to keep the results absolutely secret.
Why?
Specifically so as not to arouse or embitter the ex-executives. This instruction confirms definitively that the entire purpose of the testing was to protect the company from legal or reputational damage, not to help the employees get the necessary psychological treatment.
Even if they were suffering from genuine disorders.
That's the moment where the veil drops. The consultant's primary loyalty is to the corporate paycheck, even if it means withholding critical personal information from the very people they are supposedly coaching.
His ultimate flaw assessment of CTC is insightful because it goes beyond simple moral outrage. He says the field isn't bad just because it sells false. Most advertising does that. Its real failure is that it's uniform, steady state.
And he argues that the system treats every single case identically, regardless of the individual's unique, sometimes outrageous fate. Whether they're going on to prison, making a new fortune, starting a new life, dealing drugs, or tragically contemplating suicide.
The sheer, unyielding uniformity denies the complexity and variety of human response to catastrophic change.
Yeah, he views the whole CTC system as an ingenious suspended animation scheme designed to inject you with embalming fluid while still allowing you to breathe and speak.
Wow.
It preserves the executive in a state of professional limbo, appearing productive, engaging in the work of not working until they are either rehired or, more likely, financially exhausted and forced to retire from the white-collar world.
It's an intellectual death sentence wrapped up in motivational language and a six-figure consulting bill.
So, given the soul-crushing nature of CTC and the impending cancellation of his travel account, Bingham is definitely seeking a professional pivot.
He needs a new currency and a new narrative to justify his transient existence.
And his attempts fall into three distinct areas: literary ambition, covert intelligence consulting, and abstract management theory.
His first attempted escape route is surprisingly reflective, a short motivational fable called The Garage.
The theme is almost entirely opposed to his lifestyle: concentration, inner purity, and a bold new formula for corporate health called sufficient plenitude.
Sufficient plenitude? What does that mean?
Well, it argues against the idea of endless cancerous growth for its own sake. It compares corporate health to the human body maintaining dynamic but finite parameters of diet and exercise.
Which is fascinating that a man who lives on Diet Cola, smoked almonds, and is constantly flying between time zones, the very definition of imbalance, would write a book preaching inner purity and concentration.
It suggests a deep yearning for the stability he lacks.
But the literary venture immediately hits a snag, illustrating the impossibility of escaping his professional past. His publisher contact, Dwight, reveals The Garage is highly similar to an earlier unsuccessful book called The Basement.
By an author named Ricks?
And Ricks is not some obscure author.
No, he's a Minnesotan whom Soren Morse, the CEO of Great West Airlines, claims Bingham himself had fired 4 years ago.
So there's a connection.
A direct one. Ricks insists Bingham knew about his book and even announced his intention to write his own version during an exit interview.
So, whether intentional or accidental, the specter of his CTC job has now tainted his creative expression, suggesting intellectual plagiarism.
And Dwight's response to this crisis is a beautiful example of corporate cynicism.
What does he do?
Instead of panicking over the potential intellectual theft, he simply suggests a new, more marketable book. A confessional memoir about firing people, taking the popular, somber, reflective pose, the old recovery gambit.
That pivot is stunningly cynical. Dwight sees intellectual property failure as a market opportunity.
Exactly. He suggests swapping one form of emotional exploitation for another. Bingham is deeply offended by Dwight, a man who relies entirely on summaries to decide what he reads. But the incident confirms that in the corporate world, authenticity is just another marketable pose.
Realizing the literary world is just as toxic as consulting, he pursues MythTech, an Omaha firm he describes with almost mystical reverence.
He calls them scary. They're so good.
Right. They deal with opaque, complex topics like consumer non-durable price resistance. He suggests that if you find yourself inexplicably buying a $30 6-ounce bottle of shampoo next year, you can probably blame MythTech.
And he treated their covert interest in him like a high-stakes espionage mission. They're extremely elusive, using only plain white bond paper embossed with an omega symbol. No website, no logo.
So he had to trace a FedEx number from an anonymous caller back to a law firm belonging to MythTech's founder's father, just to confirm their legitimacy.
The people they hire are equally diverse and intriguing. Former Foreign Service officers, cops, seminarians. Bingham notes they represent the establishment and its overthrow, too.
This mix appeals to his sense of paranoia and his search for a truly powerful, secretive intelligence machine that governs the chaos he sees in the world.
But his actual visit to the Omaha warehouse, however, is surreal and profoundly anticlimactic.
It's empty.
Almost. He finds the building nearly empty, save for a young infrastructure employee who only goes by the login too busy to see you, and a bizarre army green sheet metal cube the size of an industrial air conditioner.
The employee, too busy to see you, believes the cube is corporate art.
But Bingham, already deeply paranoid and fueled by dexedrine, suspects it's a huge cyberbrain, capable of predicting consumer trends and market movements with frightening accuracy.
He believes he's looking at the machine that controls the economy.
And the ultimate reality is less cloak and dagger, but still transient. MythTech is consolidating and moving its entire operation to a campus in Calgary, Canada.
So he missed his window.
He missed his window to join their secretive ranks in Omaha. This pattern arriving just as the opportunity moves is the recurring rhythm of his transient life.
His final professional Hail Mary is the attempt to meet Sandy Pinter.
The grand old man of consulting whose books provided the intellectual foundation for modern management science.
And Bingham pitches the Pinter Zone, a proposal to endow a corporation's physical environment with the philosopher's presence.
He envisions a total environmental branding, Muzak-like recordings of Pinter's lectures playing in the hallways, epigram ticker tapes running on computer screens, and corporate carpets woven with Pinter's trademark dynograms.
Like a star of 5 crossed swords for team solidarity.
Exactly. This concept perfectly distills Bingham's need for institutional structure and meaning. If the physical workplace environment is imbued with philosophical weight and ancient wisdom, it legitimizes the work itself.
He's trying to build a sacred space where the corporate mission can't be questioned.
However, Pinter ultimately licenses the rights to Tony Marlowe, a much slicker, younger consultant. And Pinter's explanation for the rejection is highly insightful.
What does he say?
He tells Bingham that Marlowe sees him purely as a businessman, which takes the pressure off the philosophy. Bingham, being graduate of Pinter's own seminars, would have disillusioned Pinter by trying to apply the wisdom too literally.
Pinter's final advice cuts to the core of Bingham's existence. He warns him against seeking wisdom in books. They'll only depress him. The real wisdom for Bingham, Pinter asserts, is brutally materialist.
Keep occupied, work, earn money.
For the professional transient, intellectual contemplation is an unaffordable luxury. Only action and income matter.
So we've established Bingham's external world, the mileage economy, and the cynical consulting job. Now we have to turn inward to the fragmented emotional landscape of a man who lives without attachments.
Whose only anchor is his constantly moving itinerary.
His connection to his family is tenuous and maintained almost entirely through his sister Kara, whom he calls the family's glue and social secretary.
She's the constant worrywart, always trying to force stability and traditional structure, especially onto their younger sister, Julie.
And Julie is the chaotic element, representing everything Bingham has tried to suppress or escape. She has a troubled history, a teenage marriage and divorce, eating disorders, a drug bust, and rehabilitation work.
And the current crisis is her impending wedding to Keith, a marriage that Kara essentially engineered, right down to choosing the groom and the house.
It's control dressed up as sisterly love.
The ultimate crisis hits when Julie runs away right before the wedding. And this flight is triggered by an event that only makes sense in Julie's sensitive, fragile world.
2 rescue dogs, Miles and TJ, die from gopher poison at her farm, suffering unstoppable internal bleeding.
It's a tragedy that confirms the inherent unpredictability and sadness of the world, something Bingham's air world is designed to eliminate.
Later, Bingham begins to suspect Julie is pregnant, noting her increased appetite and a new, dependent, bottomless softness.
So this potential pregnancy adds massive stakes to her flight. She isn't just escaping a marriage, she is potentially escaping a controlled life to enter an even more profound, uncontrolled commitment.
But the truly disruptive moment for Bingham, the moment his isolated identity fractures, comes when he discovers a bizarre anomaly regarding the wedding gift he supposedly sent. Julie thanks him for a remote-controlled lawnmower, purchased from a Salt Lake City electronics store. Bingham knows he hadn't bought it yet.
And this simple thank you note triggers a cascade of paranoia.
He realizes this is linked to his credit card being used to buy $1,500 in electronics, flowers, and even his own $400 cowboy boots in Texas.
This isn't random theft. The thief is sentimental, following his schedule, even buying his boots.
It's a mirror image, a shadow self mimicking his life.
Which leads to Bingham's deeper, more disturbing realization that he has literally met himself coming and going.
He admits this secret to the listener, and later, his sister Kara, saying it only happened when he was alone. There's a sense of professional and personal fragmentation so deep that multiple Ryans seem to exist in the world, each one compromising the integrity of the original.
And this identity crisis directly informs his theory about Airworld itself, which he finally confesses to his ex-wife's current husband, Mark.
He proposes that Great West Airlines is running a high-stakes loyalty experiment on him.
He believes he is their optimal outcome customer, the perfect high-mileage traveler. And since the variables are too complex to quantify in a spreadsheet, the only way for the airline to replicate him is
To track and study whole in real time in my native environment, the actual Ryan Bingham.
he suspects the airline is constantly testing him, throwing scenarios at him, delays, rebuff requests, spilled coffee, to determine the crucial variables necessary to replicate his brand of loyalty.
This is the ultimate expression of corporate paranoia, linking the modern surveillance economy to his deep internal fear of being consumed and replicated by the very system that sustains him.
And this compromise of identity is devastating, but it was foreshadowed by an earlier incident that absolutely shattered his foundational belief system regarding Airworld. Bingham had always operated under the premise that in Airworld, honesty was the default. Honesty carries no penalty, and deception has no upside, forcing passengers into a default, functional trust.
And that trust is annihilated when he meets a seemingly pious Wall Street financial expert on a flight.
The man, who claims the American Lutheran Church among his clients, is preaching the gospel of high moral standards and investment prudence. He advises Bingham to load up on Chase Manhattan stock, calling it a house upon a rock.
And Bingham is genuinely inspired by this apparent moral beacon.
Now, here is where the dynamic shock of the story hits. That very evening, while reluctantly hanging out with his coaching client, Art Krusk, in Reno, they visit the Mustang Club, a strip club.
And who does he see?
The very same stock expert.
But this isn't just about a man breaking his marriage vows. The man who preached moral probity at 40,000 feet is seen being serviced by a stripper named Toilet Terry.
He describes the man's head flopping like a corpse's while Terry licks his glossy bald spot.
The profound impact of this scene isn't the vulgarity, it's the hypocrisy. The man's high-minded probity, the moral foundation that was supposed to legitimize the entire American corporate structure, was a sham.
His confidence in Airworld, his belief that there was an unspoken professional code, is completely demolished. The entire code is broken down to its most base transactional level.
And he realizes the complexity of human deception is not constrained by altitude or professional decorum. It underscores his earlier reluctance to solve labyrinths. If the person next to you, who appears to be a pillar of morality, is operating under a total sham, then uncertainty reigns supreme.
To my mind, there's nothing drearier than a labyrinth. So, what interests him is uncertainty. Will I land on time? Will the pilot strike?
And now, even the essential trustworthiness of his fellow passengers has become uncertain, destroying his sanctuary.
So despite the crushing emotional and identity crises, Bingham's relentless pursuit of the million miles continues, now driven by desperation.
He has only 6 days to achieve his goal before Craig Gregory returns and cancels his account, permanently grounding his self-defined existence.
His final days are filled with immediate practical setbacks, flights delayed, rerouted, and cancellations. This is where his paranoia peaks.
He initially suspects Soren Morse, the CEO of Great West Airlines, of personally sabotaging him.
Morse, who is already known to Bingham via the Rick's plagiarism scandal, is making things personal, Bingham believes, threaten his mileage deadline as some elaborate corporate revenge.
He is convinced Morse is using the system he built his life upon to punish him, delaying his flights and rerouting him just enough to make the million miles mathematically impossible before the deadline.
But the truth, when it comes, is entirely different and far more complex than a simple villain seeking revenge.
It completely inverts his paranoid reality, forcing him to face the fact that his fears were internalized guilt projected outward onto the system.
The revelation comes via a Great West employee substitute at the gate. The agent reveals that the airline is not sabotaging him. In fact, they have been explicitly ordered to treat the man like a prince.
His picture was run in the employee newsletter as their most wanted and soon-to-be 10th mileage millionaire.
He was a symbol of loyalty, an institutional hero, not a target of corporate conspiracy.
And the agent, recognizing his distress, confirms the anti-sabotage efforts and casually adds a detail that grounds the entire plot. Morse himself is facing absolute ruin.
A failed bid to become commissioner of baseball, tanking stock, union trouble.
Morse is, in fact, on his way out, effective October 6th.
And this realization is devastating in a new way. He discovers his perceived tormentor was actually facing far worse professional collapse than he was, and the system he thought was mocking him was, in fact, celebrating him.
He had been mistaking his team's efforts to honor him for obstruction and mockery, a reflection of his own deep guilt over his CTC work.
And the true climax of his relationship with the collapsing corporate world happens when Morse corners Bingham on the final leg, the critical Omaha-Minneapolis flight.
Morse confirms he is also leaving the company. He uses the moment not to gloat, but to share the living moment of his failure and Bingham's success side by side.
It is a moment of shared transient vulnerability between the institutional father and the loyal son.
The milestone is finally achieved. Bingham hits the 1 million miles, estimating the precise location to be over Fort Dodge, Iowa, a simple name he likes.
And he captures the moment using a single-use camera he bought at McCarran.
And what does he photograph? Not the landscape, not the wing, but his hair.
His hair.
He takes shots of his hair, which is, as he notes, how other flyers mostly see me and how I see them.
That's a profound moment of self-recognition. He is acknowledging his own anonymous identity, the self that is defined purely by external observation within Airworld.
The achievement is validated through the gaze of others.
And immediately after the milestone, the flight hits severe lateral turbulence.
Like a shark shaking meat in his jaws. The physical chaos mirrors the internal chaos he has just endured.
And this physical chaos is sharply contrasted with the disorientation caused by Morse struggling to buckle himself in.
A former captain of industry, a powerful man whose word controlled thousands of jobs, reduced to a vulnerable man struggling with a seatbelt, sharing the fear of a crash with his loyal customer.
The stability of the external world is visibly collapsing alongside the corporate structure.
And in the midst of this chaos, Bingham's Handstar digital assistant delivers the final messages that confirm his success, but also immediately warn of new burdens.
Mel Truex from Internal Travel Services confirms the million-mile courtesy upgrade, but simultaneously warns of increasing complexity.
Right. New policies are being implemented requiring multiple membership numbers. For instance, requiring his preferred frontiersman hashtag as well as Compass Air Points hashtag, just to guarantee Great West mileage credit.
The system he spent a lifetime mastering is already becoming obsolete, replaced by an even more layered, complex, and demanding structure.
His permanent residency is already fraught with new bureaucratic requirements.
Back on the ground, the transactional nature of Airworld continues to reveal itself, compromising his last few attempts at human connection.
Alex, the attractive events coordinator he slept with after the Reno flight, reveals her true identity.
She reveals she was a PR professional who was actually one of the women Bingham saw as a job applicant, the kittenish job seeker in Kashmir.
So their relationship, which he briefly thought was authentic, was based entirely on a hidden agenda.
She confesses she intended to set him up or exploit him in some way, recognizing that he had been figured out. She accuses him of being too focused on results and believing the code of professional distance and integrity was real.
She was using him for her own narrative, mirroring the cynical self-help concepts his ex-wife Lori pursued.
This is the final nail in the coffin for his belief in the purity of Airworld. Every relationship, even the fleeting romantic ones, were transactions based on deception, precisely mirroring the cynicism of his professional life in CTC.
He achieved his boundary, but in doing so, he lost his faith in the essential honesty of the system.
And his old mentor, Pinter, provides the final professional advice. He encourages Bingham to take the MythTech offer, which is now based in Calgary, requiring more travel, telling him his ignorance of the classics is his best asset for dealing with the future.
And he repeats the harsh materialist warning. Keep occupied, work, earn money.
Do not seek wisdom in books, he cautions. They will just depress you.
Pinter, the grand master of management theory, advises Bingham to accept the need for perpetual motion and material acquisition as the only meaningful boundaries in his life.
In a symbolic act of liberation, Bingham leaves his heavy carry-on suitcase and his noise machine in the Vegas hotel room.
He's shedding the affectations and tools of his old, tightly controlled transient life.
He keeps only his indispensable Handstar, his phone, and his cowboy boots.
And most symbolically, he decides to limit his identity in the numerical portals of the modern economy. He plans to keep only one Visa card for easy gas pumping and toss the rest, reasoning. The fewer numerical portals into my affairs, the fewer intruders.
He achieved his quantified boundary, but the cost was the integrity of the identity used to achieve it, forcing him to simplify and rebuild from scratch.
What we have analyzed here is an intensely detailed study of modern identity, compromised by the very systems designed to reward it.
Bingham achieved his ultimate boundary, the 1 million miles, but that status came at the price of intellectual theft, betrayal, and the knowledge that he was being studied, tested, and potentially replicated as a corporate asset.
And the profound paradox is that his hyper-vigilant nomadism, intended to secure his independence and privacy, made him the perfect subject for surveillance, testing, and monetization.
His air world, once a place of safe, neutral charges, turned out to be a hotbed of transactional manipulation, echoing the deceit of his job in CTC.
And the final, complex new loyalty policies delivered by Mel Truex. The immediate requirement for multiple membership numbers and complex tracking signal that the system Bingham mastered is continually growing more complicated and demanding, even for the elite million-mile customer.
True permanence in Airworld is an illusion. Only perpetual adaptation is real.
Bingham notes that the Earth's curvature is a blessing, because if we could see everything at once, why move? Why seek change?
Right. The necessity of motion is what defines his life.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought for you to consider.
If your identity and purpose are completely defined by motion and distance and quantified by an external system, what happens when you finally stop and the system you served collapses beneath the weight of its own complexity? Does the air world still exist if you choose to remain on the ground?